Rivalries are an important aspect of football, and when you picture NFL great rivalries, matchups like the Raiders vs. Chiefs, Bears vs. Packers, and Cowboys vs. Eagles all come to mind. However, as of more recently, one rivalry that has begun to pick up steam over the last couple seasons is that of the Baltimore Ravens and Tennessee Titans, a rivalry that predates the NFL conference realignment in 2002. In the 2019 and 2020 playoffs, the two old rivals faced off with one another to reignite the feud of the old AFC Central Division. For historical context, this rivalry emerged in '96 when the Ravens came to the league as an expansion team. The then Houston Oilers had been a part of the NFL since 1970 after the AFL-NFL merger. And when the rivalry with the Ravens started, the Oilers were in their final year in Houston as the franchise moved to Tennessee in '97, playing in the city of Memphis for a season before ultimately relocating to Nashville.
There's no love lost between Tennessee and Baltimore. This goes back to 2000, Skip, to Brian Billick and Jeff Fisher and Ray and Eddie George and all. There's no love lost.
It was simply the most physical football game I have ever witnessed. All my years covering your league, I have never seen such hitting as I saw that day. Baltimore at Nashville against the Titans of Eddie George. So it was Eddie George versus Ray Lewis.
Billy Martin, straight from Brooklyn, better known as Brooklyn. Never taking shorts because Brooklyn's the borough.
One of the most physical playoff games occurred in the 2000 playoffs when the Tennessee Titans hosted the Baltimore Ravens in what would be their third installment for the 2000 season. During the regular season, both teams split the divisional matchup, snatching away wins. These games were hard-fought encounters that saw two of the scariest men in the league go toe-to-toe. On one side, you had Titans running back Eddie George, who was a bulldozer that ran through opposing defenses, and on the other side of the field, you had Ray Lewis, the hardest hitting linebacker in the league and whose sole job was to stop the run. While the pair were friends off the field, on the field, it was a completely different story. These two literally wanted to kill each other as soon as they stepped on the field.
And it was interesting because every time we would see each other, when we saw each other off the field, it was like, hey man, meet me at the bar, let's hang out, right? At the Pro Bowl, and it's like, right. But then when we got on the field, it's like this switch, and we had this ultimate respect for each other, but we had this ultimate competitive spirit that said, I'm not losing to him.
To make matters worse, after the second regular season game in Tennessee, where the Ravens came away with a road win, Baltimore cornerback Chris McAllister began trash-talking Eddie George after the game. The DB went on to say, every time Eddie touched the ball after that, he just folded like a baby. He didn't want any part of us. This quote was in reference to the huge hit Ray Lewis placed on the running back in the second quarter of that game, a game in which Eddie finished with a mere 28 rushing yards off of 12 carries. So you can kind of understand there was a lot of built-up emotions leading up to this game. Aside from the players not liking each other, the coaches and fan base just despised one another, and both teams knew whoever came out on top of this game were most likely going to the Super Bowl. Both Baltimore and Tennessee were the two best defensive teams during the regular season, with the 2000 Ravens defense largely considered one of the greatest defenses of all time. But the only problem with the team was that their offense was pretty subpar. It was led by Trent Dilfer, who was the quarterback, and the run game of Jamal Lewis. Tennessee, on the other hand, were led on offense by the tandem of Steve McNair and Eddie George, who also had led their team the year before, just inches away from maybe winning the Super Bowl. That being said, this team was thought to be even better than the '99 team the season prior, so this AFC Divisional matchup was surely going to be a classic. Guys, before we continue, make sure you turn on all notifications to get my weekly uploads. Also, do me a favor and hit that like button, as it really helps promote the video across the platform. As the game kicked off, Tennessee got off to a good start, marching down the field as McNair connected on 3 of his first 4 pass attempts that was capped off with an Eddie George 2-yard touchdown run. The Titans' drive lasted 11 plays and featured 0 third downs, and this was the dream start the Titans were looking for. Get up early and ahead on the scoreboard and let their defense take over. During the first quarter, the game really got physical. Ray Lewis was everywhere on the field trying to stop Eddie George in the run game. The two collided on a couple plays down the middle where it was clear there wasn't going to be any love loss. There was a lot of trash talking from both players in between plays, and in the second quarter on 3rd and 10, with the Ravens in possession, Dilfer connected with tight end Shannon Sharp on a busted coverage for a huge gain of 56 yards to the 1-yard line. Ravens running back Jamal Lewis ran the ball in on the next play to level the score 7-7. On the next Tennessee drive, more big hits would come to follow as the Titans moved the ball down the field in Ravens territory. From Baltimore's 27-yard line, Del Greco attempted a 45-yard field goal that was eventually blocked, giving the visiting team a chance to take the lead right before the half. However, the Ravens went 3-and-out as Dilfer got sacked for a loss of 10 yards. And then the Ravens' subsequent punt was then blocked by Chris Dolman with just under 2 minutes left in the game. After getting the ball in the Ravens' red zone, in came Del Greco again for a 31-yard field goal attempt. And he missed again as the ball hit the upright. Both teams went into the half tied 7-7 after a crazy sequence of plays from special teams. Tennessee running back Eddie George was heavily involved in the run game as he recorded 17 carries for 61 yards and a score. Both quarterbacks really hadn't done too much as this was a nip and tuck game. The opening of the third quarter saw another block punt by Chris Coleman for his second of the game, and this put Tennessee's offense in prime position to take the lead. But after the Ravens contained the run, the Titans had to settle for a field goal as Del Greco finally came through for 3 points for a 10-7 lead. After the Ravens got possession, Dilfer, while trying to find Shannon Sharpe on 2nd and 8, took a huge hit from linebacker Keith Bullock. The quarterback subsequently came out of the game for backup QB Tony Banks, who finished the drive. Dilfer would eventually make his way back, and on the next Ravens possession, the quarterback got his offense within field goal range for a 38-yard kick to tie the game at 10 apiece. As the third quarter came to an end, it's at this point when things began to unravel for Tennessee. A quick Titans drive left them with a chance to take the lead, but Del Greco's 37-yard attempt was blocked again, and this time it was returned for a Ravens touchdown. After trading 3-and-outs, the Titans drove the ball to midfield as McNair connected a couple times with Derek Mason. Then on 2nd and 9, the Titans quarterback hit Eddie George in the hands, albeit a little behind, and the receiver bobbled the pass right into the arms of Ray Lewis, who returned it for a touchdown. And it was at this point where the Titans knew they lost the game. 2 critical plays in the span of 6 minutes all but sealed the Ravens' ticket to the AFC Championship game. From there, the Ravens' defense protected the 24-10 lead, and the best team in Titans history was eliminated in their first game of the postseason. This was a huge blow to the players, coaching staff, and the organization. After coming so close to winning the Super Bowl the year prior, and then having the league's best record the following season, followed by the number 2 defense, the writing was clear on the wall. This was their season. Even when looking at the final stat sheet, it's hard to imagine the Ravens coming out on top. The Titans outgained the Ravens 317 to 134 in total yards and picked up 23 first downs to Baltimore's 6. And they also won the time of possession, doubling the Ravens' total time of 19 minutes and 31 seconds. Quarterback Trent Dilfer went 5 for 16, throwing for 117 yards, with almost half of that coming from the Shannon Sharpe catch and run play. Titans kicker Al Del Greco missed a total of 3 field goals and ended up retiring following the playoff game. And we all know what happened for the remainder of the 2000 playoffs. The Baltimore Ravens easily dispatched the Raiders in the championship game after their defense held Oakland to just 3 points. Super Bowl 35 saw the Ravens take on the Giants in what was a lopsided affair as Ray Lewis and the Baltimore Ravens went on to hoist the Lombardi after a 34-7 victory. And in the end, this really has to be crushing for any Titans fan, as this has to be one of the biggest what-ifs in their history. Had the Titans defeated the Ravens, how much differently would we view both teams? That being said, although the two teams are in different divisions, I'm sure both sets of fan bases are really enjoying the recent rekindling of this once great rivalry. Guys, if you made it this far, I really hope you enjoyed the video. I put a lot of time and research into making each video, and it's really something I have a lot of fun doing. For those of you who want to show your appreciation and support, I have set up a Patreon account with a link in the description box below. If that's something you're unable to do, that's fine also. Just do me a favor and hit that like button.